The asteroid belt was quiet that morning. Daniel's small inspection shuttle drifted between chunks of rock, scanning for signs of damage to the mining station's outer relay beacons. He had done this job hundreds of times. Most days, nothing happened. Just endless rocks, empty space, and the low hum of his shuttle's engine. He sipped lukewarm coffee from a tin cup while his console flashed a steady green light. No faults detected. That was what he expected. It was the same routine every week. But then something changed. A soft, repeating sound came through the shuttle's comms, faint, like a heartbeat buried under static. Daniel frowned and leaned closer to the console. It was not a regular beacon signal. The rhythm was strange. It had a pattern, but not one he recognized from human transmissions. He tapped a few keys and ran the signal through the translator. The computer struggled to make sense of it. No match in the database. The only result on the screen read, "Unknown origin." Daniel sat back, feeling a spark of curiosity. The mining station's rules were clear: ignore unidentified signals, unless cleared by command. But the sound kept repeating, and with each pulse, something about it seemed urgent, almost pleading. He hesitated for a moment, then adjusted his shuttle's course toward the source. The stars shifted outside the cockpit window as he glided. Between drifting boulders, the signal grew stronger. Soon, he spotted something caught in the shadow of a large asteroid dot. It was a small metallic object, spinning slowly. The surface glinted when sunlight hit it. Daniel brought the shuttle closer, using the thrusters to match its slow rotation. His eyes widened. It was an escape pod, badly damaged, its outer hull scorched and dented. He checked the markings, but there were none. Not human, not from any allied species. The pod looked older than anything in the station's hangar, with lines and shapes he had never seen before. A thin trail of frozen vapor leaked from a crack near the rear dot. Daniel activated the shuttle's docking arm and pulled the pod into the cargo bay. Inside his suit, he felt his heartbeat quicken. If the pod was empty, he could report it as debris. If it wasn't, he wasn't sure what he would do. The cargo bay doors sealed, and Daniel stepped inside. The pod's hatch was stuck, so he used a pry tool to force it open. Cold air hissed out. Inside, dim lights flickered weakly. Then he saw movement. A small figure was strapped into the seat, its body curled forward. Daniel froze. The figure was not human. The skin was pale, with a faint silver sheen, almost like liquid metal under thin glass. The head was slightly larger in proportion to the body, and the eyes, when they slowly opened, were deep and luminous, reflecting the light like pools of dark water. The child, for it could be nothing else, made a weak sound, almost like a sigh. Daniel's first thought was that it needed air. He checked the pod's life support panel. Oxygen levels were low, almost depleted. He didn't think, he just acted. Daniel unbuckled the restraints and lifted the child carefully into his arms. It was lighter than he expected, but its breathing was shallow and uneven. He hurried to the shuttle's med corner and placed the child on a soft bench with quick hands. He pulled an emergency air mask from the wall and placed it gently over him. The small mouth and nose. The child inhaled, hesitated, then took a deeper breath. The strange shimmer on its skin flickered faintly, like the glint of sunlight on rippling water. Daniel kept an eye on the vitals showing on his portable scanner. The readings were unlike anything in human biology, but the oxygen seemed to be helping. For a moment, the child looked at him. Not just a glance, it was a focused, searching look, as if trying to understand who he was. Daniel didn't speak, though he felt the urge to say something comforting. He had no idea if the child could understand human words, but the gaze in those eyes made him think it didn't matter. Back in the cockpit, Daniel sent a brief, coded message to the mining station, just enough to explain he was returning. Nothing about the pod. He knew the rules. If the station commander learned about this, protocol would demand they hand the child over to the authorities. Daniel wasn't sure what the authorities would do. The galaxy was full of stories about what happened when unknown aliens fell into the wrong hands. None of those stories ended well. He looked back at the child. now resting under a blanket he had fetched from the storage bin. It was still breathing slowly, but the shimmer on its skin was steadier. Its eyes had closed, and it seemed to be sleeping. Daniel sat quietly for the rest of the flight, listening to the soft hum of the shuttle's engines. His mind kept returning to the same thought. This was not just a rescue. This was the beginning of something. He could feel it. When the mining station came into view, Daniel switched to manual docking. He kept his face calm as the docking arms clamped onto the shuttle. The station's bay doors opened with a deep mechanical groan, letting him glide inside. He made sure the child was still safe before stepping out to greet the bay crew. They barely looked at him, just another inspection trip returning with nothing worth mentioning. Once alone, Daniel carried the child carefully through the quiet maintenance corridor, avoiding the main passages. His quarters were small but private. He placed the child gently on his bed, tucking the blanket around its small frame. The station's hum was faint here, almost like a lullaby. Daniel sat in the chair across from the bed, watching the child sleep. He didn't know who it was or where it came from, but he knew one thing: whatever happened next, he could not let anyone take it away. Somewhere out there, someone had lost this child, and Daniel had found it. That had to mean something. Daniel woke to the sound of soft breathing. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then his eyes fell on the small figure lying on his bed. The alien child was still there, wrapped in the blanket, chest rising and falling slowly, the shimmer on its skin was calmer now, almost like the glow of moonlight on still water. He stood quietly, careful not to wake it, and checked the portable scanner. The oxygen levels were stable. Whatever species it was, it seemed to be recovering. Daniel sat on the edge of his chair, rubbing his face. He knew hiding the child was risky. The mining station was a small place, and people noticed unusual things. It would not be long before someone wondered why he was keeping his quarters locked. Still, the thought of handing the child over made his stomach tighten. He had seen how the authorities treated unknown life forms. They call it containment. But in reality, it meant endless tests, isolation, and no guarantee the creature would survive. The child stirred and opened its eyes. It looked at him for a long moment, head tilted slightly as if studying him. Then it sat up slowly. Daniel smiled gently and offered it a small piece of nutrient bread. The child sniffed it, hesitated, and then took a small bite. It ate slowly, eyes never leaving his face. Daniel wondered if it could sense his thoughts, because there was something in its gaze. Not fear, but curiosity. Suddenly, a loud voice echoed from the station's comm system. Attention all personnel. Incoming unidentified fleet detected. On long-range sensors, all non-essential activities are suspended. Await further instructions. Daniel's pulse quickened. He looked at the child. Could it be connected to the fleet? If so, the station was about to be in very dangerous territory. He went to the small wall terminal and accessed the external feed. The screen showed distant shapes approaching against the black of space, even at maximum zoom. The ships were enormous. Sleek, silver hulls reflected the light of the nearby star. They moved in perfect formation. Not like pirates or traders. This was a military fleet. The station commander's voice came over the comm. All crew, maintain positions. Do not engage. We are attempting contact. Daniel turned back to the child. Its eyes were wide now, and the shimmer on its skin had brightened. It made a soft, musical sound, almost like a whisper carried on wind. He could not understand the words, but he felt the meaning. Recognition. The fleet drew closer. Daniel, imagine what the commander was thinking. A group of unknown warships suddenly appearing near a mining station would be seen as a threat. The safest reaction for the commander would be to prepare for defense, maybe even call for reinforcements from human space. But that could end badly if the alien fleet had greater firepower. An hour later, the first message came in from the fleet. It was a short transmission, broadcast in multiple languages. The translation appeared on Daniel's terminal. We seek the lost child of our ruler. We will not leave until they are found. Daniel felt his chest tighten. There was no doubt. Now, the child in his quarters was the one they were searching for. Outside his door, the sound of hurried footsteps filled the corridor. Crew members were rushing to battle stations. The station's defense shields were activated. Daniel knew the commander would start scanning every ship, every corner of the station. It was only a matter of time before they found the child. The child made another sound, softer this time. It reached out a small hand toward him. Daniel knelt beside the bed. "They're looking for you, aren't they?" he said quietly. The child blinked slowly, as if confirming it. He thought about telling the commander the truth. But if the meeting between the station and the aliens began with armed guards and suspicion, it could turn into a disaster. One wrong move and both sides might start firing. Daniel decided he needed time to think. He told the child to stay quiet, speaking slowly and pointing to the bed. Whether it understood or not, it stayed still. He left his quarters and walked toward the hangar, blending in with the rest of the crew. From the viewing window, he could see the alien flagship up close now. It was massive, shaped like a blade of crystal, with hundreds of small lights moving along its surface. The commander was speaking to it through a tight beam channel. Daniel overheard a few words: demands for identification, warnings to stay outside the station's defense perimeter. The voice was tense, careful, and not exactly welcoming. Daniel knew this would not work. If the aliens thought the station was hiding their ruler's child, they would see it as an act of hostility, and if they decided to take the child by force, the station's weapons would be useless against ships of that size. He went back to his quarters and found the child sitting up, watching the door. Daniel knelt beside it again. "If I take you back, will they leave us alone?" he asked. The child tilted its head and blinked slowly. There was no clear answer, but Daniel felt it was the only choice. He began gathering supplies: a small air tank, emergency rations, and a handheld translator. Then he pulled a cover over the child and carried it through the maintenance tunnels, away from the main carters. The tunnels led directly to the small personal shuttle bay. His shuttle was old but reliable. He placed the child in the co-pilot seat and secured the straps. It watched him the entire time, its large eyes following every movement. Daniel powered up the engines and sealed the hatch. The moment the shuttle detached from the station, warning messages lit up his console. Unauthorized launch. He ignored them and pushed the throttle. The alien fleet loomed ahead. He knew the station would try to call him back, maybe even send a patrol drone to stop him. But if he could get close enough to the flagship, they might listen before anyone fired a shot. The child made a soft sound again, its tone calmer now. Daniel glanced at it and gave a small nod. "Let's get you home," he said. The alien flagship grew larger in the viewport, its silver surface glowing against the darkness of space. Bright beams scanned his shuttle, locking onto it. Daniel gripped the controls, ready for whatever came next. The alien flagship filled Daniel's entire view. Its silver hull curved like a great blade against the stars, covered in shifting patterns of light that seemed to move on their own. The closer he flew, the more details appeared: vast hangar, bays, towers that glowed faintly, and rows of narrow windows that hinted at a huge number of crew inside. His shuttle's console lit up with a warning. The flagship had locked onto him with tractor beams. The pull was strong, steady, and there was no way to escape it. Daniel kept his hands on the controls, but they no longer mattered. The massive ship was drawing him in. Beside him, the alien child sat quietly, eyes wide, watching its home grow larger. The shimmer on its skin had brightened, almost as if it could sense safety ahead. For the first time, Daniel thought he saw the corners of his mouth lift in what might be a small smile. The shuttle entered a docking bay unlike any Daniel had seen. The walls were made of some kind of crystal-like metal, glowing with soft blue light. Dozens of alien figures stood waiting, tall and graceful, their armor reflecting the glow around them. Each carried a long, curved weapon strapped to their back. The shuttle touched down gently. A ramp extended from the bay floor, meeting his hatch. Daniel took a deep breath, unstrapped the child, and held its hand as they stepped outside. The aliens did not move at first. They simply watched, their golden eyes focused on the small figure beside him. Then one of them stepped forward, a female, taller than Daniel, her armor engraved with symbols. She spoke in a language he could not understand. The child made a soft sound in reply. The female's eyes widened, and she turned quickly toward a set of large doors at the far end of the bay. With a gesture, she signaled Daniel to follow. They walked through a wide hallway, the floor smooth as glass and lined with tall pillars that seemed to hum faintly. Strange symbols glowed along the walls, and the air was warmer than on the station. Carrying a faint scent like fresh rain dot at the end of the hall, the doors opened into a vast chamber. Daniel stopped, his eyes drawn upward. The ceiling was high enough to hold an entire shuttle, and it shimmered like the night sky, complete with stars that seemed to move slowly across it. In the center stood a raised platform. Upon it was a throne, carved from a single piece of crystal, its edges catching the light in 1,000 tiny rainbows. Sitting upon the throne was the alien queen. Her presence filled the room before she spoke a word. She was taller than the others, wearing robes that flowed like liquid silver. A crown of delicate golden lines rested on her head, and her eyes were deep molten gold, fixed on Daniel and the child. The child let go of Daniel's hand and ran forward. Its small feet made no sound on the smooth floor. The queen rose from her throne and bent down, gathering the child into her arms. A sound filled the chamber, soft and melodic, unlike anything Daniel had heard before. He realized it was coming from her, perhaps a greeting or an expression of relief. The queen held the child close for a long moment before looking back at Daniel. Her eyes studied him in silence. Then she spoke. Her words came first in her own language, flowing and musical, and then a voice from a nearby device translated them into simple human speech. "You are the one who brought my child to me." Daniel nodded. "Yes. I found the escape pod near an asteroid field. I couldn't just leave them there." The queen's gaze did not waver. "You risk much to return what is most precious. To me, few among your kind would take such a risk for one they did not know." Daniel hesitated. "I only did what I thought was right." A murmur passed through the other aliens in the chamber. The queen seemed to study him even more closely, as if weighing his words against his face, his posture, and something unseen. Finally, she stepped down from the platform and stood before him. Up close, Daniel could see faint patterns moving across her skin, like waves of light beneath the surface. She raised a hand slightly, not touching him, but close enough that he felt a strange warmth. "In our culture," she said, "to save a life, especially the life of a ruler's child, creates a bond that must be honored. This is not a debt of gold or weapon, but of trust and protection. You have given me cause to honor you in a way that will not be forgotten." Daniel was not sure what to say. All he could manage was, "I didn't expect anything in return." The queen's golden eyes softened. "That is why you are worthy of it." She gestured toward a guard, who brought forward a small, shining object, a pendant made of crystal, glowing faintly from within. She held it out to him. "This will mark you as a friend of my people. Any who see it will know you are under my protection," she said. "But such a gift is not just for you. It is a promise. If ever your people are in danger from ours, this will remind them of this day." Daniel took the pendant carefully, feeling its smooth surface warm against his palm. He bowed his head slightly, unsure if it was the right gesture, but the queen seemed pleased. Before he could speak, the queen turned and returned to her throne, the child still in her arms. The guards stepped back, and the doors to the chamber opened again. "You will be escorted back to your station," she said. "But know this, our paths will cross again." As Daniel followed the guards out, he looked once more at the queen. She was watching him, her expression unreadable yet filled with a sense of weight. In that moment, he knew that what had happened was bigger than just a rescue. It was the beginning of something far greater. The alien escort led Daniel back through the long crystal corridors of the flagship. Their footsteps echoed softly in the warm, bright air. The guards walked in silence, but Daniel could feel their eyes on him, as if they were still deciding whether to trust him. When they reached the docking bay, Daniel saw his shuttle waiting, but this time it was cleaned and repaired. Even the small dent on the side panel had been fixed. It looked almost new. One of the guards handed him a sealed container. Inside were supplies, food packets, water, and a small device that looked like a communicator. "The Queen says this is for your journey back," the guard said in clear, translated speech. Daniel stepped into the shuttle, but turned one last time toward the huge doors of the bay. He thought of the Queen holding her child, of the warmth in her eyes when she spoke to him. He also thought of the tension that would be waiting for him at the mining station. The tractor beams released the shuttle, and Daniel guided it out into open space. The massive shape of the flagship grew smaller behind him, but the pendant around his neck felt heavier now. It was not just a gift, it was a responsibility. As the mining station came into view, the comm panel began flashing. A sharp voice came through. "Daniel, this is Commander Hale. You left the station without clearance and made direct contact with the alien fleet. Report to the command deck immediately." Daniel sighed. He had expected this. The docking procedure was quick, but as soon as the hatch opened, two security officers were waiting. They walked him straight to the command deck. The command deck was tense. Screens showed the alien fleet still in the same position outside the asteroid belt. The commander stood near the main display, arms crossed. "I'll get straight to it," Hale said. "You left with a possible threat on board and returned without it. Explain yourself." Daniel told them the truth, how he had found the child, how the fleet was searching for it, and how he had decided to return it himself. The room was silent when he finished. "You realize," Hale said slowly, "you acted against direct orders. You could have started a war, or ended one before it began." Daniel replied. The commander's eyes narrowed. "And you expect me to believe they just let you go?" Daniel reached into his jacket and pulled out the pendant. The soft crystal light filled the room. "The Queen gave me this. She said it marks me as a friend of her people. She promised that if our species ever face each other in danger, this would remind them of this day." The officers exchanged uneasy glances. The commander stepped closer, studying the pendant. For a moment, his stern expression faltered. "If that's true," he said quietly, "then you've done something bigger than this station. But promises are fragile, Daniel. One wrong move, and all of this could fall apart." Over the next hours, messages passed between the station and the alien fleet. The first talks were stiff and cautious, but there was no aggression. The aliens confirmed that their ruler's child had been returned unharmed in return. They promised to leave the mining station in peace. By the end of the day, the alien fleet began to move. The great flagship turned slowly, leading the other ships away from the belt. The crew on the command deck watched in silence as the formation grew smaller and finally disappeared into the dark. Daniel should have felt relieved, but instead he felt the weight of what had just happened. He had been given a bond of trust by a ruler of a species unknown to humanity. Now he had to decide what to do with it. That night, he sat alone in his quarters, turning the pendant over in his hand. The crystal surface caught the station's soft lights, glowing faintly. He thought about the Queen's words, that their paths would cross again. A knock on his door pulled him from his thoughts. It was Rena, a fellow engineer. She looked at him with curiosity. "So it's true," she said. "You met their Queen?" Daniel nodded. "I met her. She's not what most people here would expect." Rena stepped inside. "People are already talking. Some think you're a hero. Others think you took a dangerous risk. The commander's still deciding if you'll face charges." Daniel smiled faintly. "Let him decide. I'd make the same choice again." Rena studied him for a moment. Then her eyes shifted to the pendant. "That's not just a gift, is it?" "No," Daniel said quietly. "It's a promise. And I think it's going to matter someday." The next day, an encrypted message arrived on Daniel's personal console. It was from an unknown source, but the code matched the communicator the alien guard had given him. The translation read, "This bond is not ended. When the time comes, you will know." Daniel stared at the message for a long moment. He didn't know when that time would come, or what it would mean. But deep inside, he knew that this was only the beginning of something larger than his life on the mining station. He closed the message, placed the communicator in a safe compartment, and slipped the pendant back over his neck. Whatever choice lay ahead, he would be ready to make it. Weeks passed on the mining station. The days returned to their usual rhythm, relay checks, shuttle repairs, and supply runs through the asteroid belt to the rest of the crew. It seemed as though the incident with the alien fleet was over, but Daniel knew better. The pendant around his neck and the communicator hidden in his quarters reminded him that the bond with the Queen was still alive. One quiet evening, while Daniel was repairing a coolant line in the maintenance bay, the communicator lit up with a faint blue glow. He quickly wiped his hands and picked it up, a voice, smooth and clear. Spoken translated human speech. Daniel of the mining station. The Queen requests your presence. He froze when he asked. The reply came without hesitation now, before he could think of an excuse or ask for details. A bright signal appeared on the station's long-range scanners. A single alien vessel, smaller than the flagship but still larger than any human ship, was approaching the belt. Its path was direct, heading for the station's private docking wing. Daniel told no one except Rena. She looked worried but didn't try to stop him. Be careful, she said quietly. This is not a normal visit. The alien ship's bay opened as soon as he arrived. A group of armored guards greeted him and led him aboard. The interior was just as he remembered from the flagship. Smooth crystal walls, soft light, and a faint hum in the air. The ship moved away from the station without delay. Through a viewing port, Daniel saw the stars shifting faster and faster. In less than an hour, the ship entered the same sector where he had first met the Queen. This time, the meeting hall was smaller, but no less impressive. The floor reflected the light above like still water, and at the far end stood the Queen herself. She was not seated on a throne. Instead, she stood waiting, her hands resting gently on the shoulders of the child Daniel had rescued. The child's eyes lit up at the sight of him. Without hesitation, it ran across the hall and embraced him. Daniel knelt, returning the hug. The shimmer on its skin was brighter than he had ever seen. The Queen approached slowly. You have been well, she asked. I have, Daniel replied. And you? My people are safe, she said. But a shadow grows at the edge of our stars. I have called you because the promise between us may soon be tested. Daniel felt his pulse quicken. What kind of shadow? The Queen's golden eyes darkened slightly. A rival fleet. They come not for war, but for control. They believe weakness can be found in the bond between my people and yours. They may attempt to turn your kind against us before our friendship can take root. Daniel frowned. And you think I can stop them? You have already done what no envoy could, she said. You acted without orders, without seeking reward. This is the kind of action they cannot predict. I need someone like you to carry my words directly to your leaders. Daniel hesitated. He was just a station worker, not a diplomat. Why me? The Queen's gaze softened. Because you are trusted by neither side enough to be blinded by loyalty, and yet you are trusted enough to be heard. The weight of her request sank in. Carrying a message between two species that barely knew each other was dangerous. If something went wrong, he could be blamed by both. But he remembered the fear in the child's eyes when he first found it, and the relief on the Queen's face when they reunited. What would I need to say? He asked. The Queen gestured to one of her guards, who brought forward a small case. Inside was a shard of crystal, glowing faintly from within. This is our truth, she said. It contains the history of my people, our laws, our intentions. For peace, give it to your leaders. Let them see us not as invaders, but as allies. Daniel took the case carefully. The crystal felt warm in his hands, almost alive. And if they refuse to listen, then we will know the path ahead, the Queen replied. The child tugged at Daniel's sleeve, making a soft, melodic sound. The Queen smiled faintly. They say you should not be afraid. That fate has already chosen this path for you. Daniel stood, holding the case against his side. All right, he said finally. I'll deliver it. The Queen inclined her head. Then our bond is stronger than ever. The guards escorted him back to the docking bay. As he boarded the smaller alien vessel, the Queen spoke one last time. Remember, Daniel, trust is a rare metal. Once broken, It is almost impossible to mend. Carry it carefully. The return journey was quick. The alien vessel left him in his shuttle just outside the mining station's range as the massive ship pulled away. Daniel felt the weight of the task pressing on him. He docked at the station quietly. But word of his absence had already reached the commander. Hale summoned him immediately. "You've been gone," the commander said flatly. "And I know it wasn't for a walk around the asteroids." Daniel took a slow breath. "I was with the Queen. She asked me to deliver something to our leaders." Hale's eyes narrowed. "And you think I'll just let you walk out with it?" Daniel placed the case on the table. The crystal inside glowed softly, filling the room with light. "I think you should see it before you decide anything." For a long time, Hale said nothing. His eyes stayed on the crystal, as if the light was showing him something more than just a reflection. Finally, he leaned back. "You've put yourself in the middle of something very big, Daniel. I'm not sure if you're ready for it." Daniel glanced at the pendant around his neck, then back at the commander. "I wasn't ready to find a child in an escape pod, either. But I did what was right then. I'll do what's right now." Hale studied him for another moment before nodding slowly. "Then you'd better prepare for a very long journey." Daniel's journey to Earth began at sunrise. The mining station's small diplomatic shuttle was prepared for him, stocked with supplies in a secure chamber for the crystal case. Commander Hale personally oversaw the final checks before takeoff. "You'll dock at Orbital Command first," Hale instructed. "From there, you'll be escorted to the United Earth Council. Every leader will be watching you. Choose your words carefully." Daniel nodded, though inside his stomach felt tight. He had never spoken before a crowd larger than the mining station crew. But the image of the alien queen's calm gaze and the child's hopeful smile pushed away his fear. The shuttle's engines hummed as it left the station. Through the viewport, the asteroid belt shrank into the distance, replaced by the vast blue and white sphere of Earth. As the shuttle descended through the atmosphere, the sunlight gleamed off oceans and clouds, a sight Daniel had not seen in years. At Orbital Command, security was tight. Soldiers checked every inch of the shuttle, scanned Daniel twice, and examined the crystal case with handheld analyzers. When none of their devices could identify the material, they allowed him to proceed. He was escorted into a transport craft bound for Geneva, where the United Earth Council held its meetings. The building was an immense dome of steel and glass, reflecting the bright sky above. Crowds had gathered outside, held back by barriers, curious about the visitor who had arrived from deep space. Inside, the council chamber was arranged in a circle. Delegates from every major nation sat at polished wooden desks, their flags displayed beside them. At the center was a raised platform where Daniel now stood. The crystal case rested on a table before him. Glowing faintly in the dim light, a voice echoed from the council chair. "State your name and the purpose of your visit." Daniel took a steady breath. "My name is Daniel Ward. I come from Mining Station Epsilon 4. Several weeks ago, I rescued the child of the alien queen who commands the fleet near the Karis Belt. She sends me here with a message of peace and a request for alliance." The room filled with low murmurs. Some delegates leaned forward with interest, while others frowned with suspicion. One delegate from the Eastern Alliance spoke sharply. "And why should we believe that this is not a trap? The fleets have already caused fear across our colonies." Daniel placed his hand on the crystal case. "Because I was there. I saw them fight to protect their own. I saw the Queen's child in danger and no soldiers to defend it. I acted because it was right, not because I was ordered to. This crystal contains the truth of their people, history, laws, intentions. See it for yourselves before making judgment." The council chair nodded to a technician. The case was carefully opened, and the crystal was placed in a scanning unit. A beam of light projected symbols and moving images into the air above. The chamber watched as the history unfolded, a story of a star-faring civilization that had endured centuries of war before uniting under one leader. The projection showed peaceful exchanges with other worlds, grand cities of light, and fleets not for invasion but for protection of trade routes. When the images ended, silence filled the room. A delegate from the Southern Federation spoke quietly. "If what we have seen is true, then they are not our enemies. But the Eastern Alliance delegate shook his head, or they are skilled at deception. We cannot risk trusting them without guarantees. Daniel stepped forward again. Trust is always a risk, but if you refuse their offer, they will face their enemies alone. And when those enemies are done with them, we will be next. This is not just their fight. It is ours too. The council chair raised a hand. Enough. We will deliberate. Daniel was escorted out of the chamber and into a waiting room. Hours passed with no word. He paced the floor, replaying every word he had spoken. He wondered if he had said too much or not enough. Finally, a guard entered. They want to see you again. Back in the chamber. The chair's expression was unreadable. The council is divided. Some believe the Queen's message is genuine. Others demand proof beyond this crystal. Daniel's heart sank. And what proof do they want? They want her to come here, the chair said, to stand before us herself. Daniel knew the Queen had warned him about the dangers of traveling to human space. Her presence might be seen as a threat, no matter her intentions. That could be dangerous for her, he said. It could, the chair agreed. But without it, we cannot reach a decision. Daniel thought for a moment, then said, if she agrees, I will bring her myself. But if anything happens to her, this alliance will never be possible. The chair nodded. Then you have leave to return to her and make the request. By evening, Daniel was back aboard the shuttle, the crystal case secured once again. As the craft lifted into orbit, he gazed down at Earth, wondering if this was the last time he would see it for a long while. During the journey back to the asteroid belt, Daniel's mind turned over the problem again and again. Would the Queen risk herself for the sake of an alliance with people who might reject her? Would she even believe his warning when he arrived at the mining station? Hale met him at the docking bay. How did it go? Daniel sighed. They listen, but they want more. They want her to come to Earth. Hale's eyebrows rose. That's bold. Do you think she'll agree? I don't know, Daniel admitted. But if she doesn't, there may never be peace between our people. That night, he activated the communicator the Queen had given him. The blue light shimmered, and her image appeared. The child was beside her, watching him closely. They have heard your message, Daniel said, but they want you to come to Earth and speak to them yourself. The Queen's expression was calm, but her eyes held a trace of sadness. I expected this. It is the way of those who fear what they do not know. It will be dangerous. Daniel said, I can't promise they will welcome you. She nodded slowly. And yet, if we do not take this step, the bridge between our worlds will remain unfinished. The child made a soft sound, looking from the Queen to Daniel. The Queen reached out and rested a hand on its shoulder. We will come. Prepare the way, Daniel warned, and be certain the path is safe. Daniel's chest tightened with both relief and worry. I'll be ready. As the communicator faded, he looked out at the stars beyond the station windows. The next part of his journey would be the most dangerous yet, bringing the alien Queen and her heir into the heart of human space. 3 days later, Daniel stood in the docking bay of the mining station, watching as the alien Queen's vessel emerged from the darkness of space. The ship moved like a shadow, silent and smooth, its silver hull reflecting the starlight. Even before it docked, Daniel could feel the tension among the station crew. Soldiers kept their weapons lowered but ready, eyes fixed on the airlock. When the hatch opened, the Queen stepped through. She wore a robe of deep blue, embroidered with patterns that shimmered like water. The young heir walked beside her, head held high but eyes full of curiosity. 2 alien guards followed closely, their armor marked with the crest of her house. Daniel bowed slightly. Welcome. The shuttle to Earth is prepared. The Queen's gaze swept the room, calm yet alert. Thank you, Daniel warned. We trust your people will keep their word. They will, Daniel said, though inside he hoped his promise would hold true. The journey to Earth was quiet. The Queen spent most of the time watching the stars, while the child asked Daniel questions about human cities, oceans, and animals. He answered as best he could, careful to keep the mood light. Yet in his mind, he was already imagining the moment they would step into the council chamber, where every leader would be waiting. They reached orbital command under heavy escort. The sight of the alien Queen's ship in Earth orbit drew attention. From every satellite and observation post, messages flew across military channels. But the Council had given strict orders. No action was to be taken unless the Queen made a hostile move. Daniel guided her and the child to the transport craft. Soldiers lined the corridor, their faces unreadable. Some looked wary, others simply curious. The Queen walked with steady grace, ignoring the stares. The transport descended through clouds until the city of Geneva came into view. Sunlight gleamed on the lake, and the Council's great glass dome shone ahead. Crowds had gathered again, larger than before, but this time their murmurs were mixed, some fearful, some welcoming. Inside the Council chamber, the atmosphere was heavy with anticipation. Every delegate was present. Cameras floated in the air, transmitting the meeting live to the entire planet. The Council chair rose. "Welcome, Queen of the Karis Fleet. We receive you as an honored guest." The Queen inclined her head. "And I come as one who seeks understanding, not conquest." Her voice was calm but carried across the chamber. "Your people fear us because we are unknown to you. But we have crossed the stars not to take your worlds, but to keep both our peoples safe from those who would destroy us." She told them of the enemies beyond their borders, raiders who showed no mercy, empires that crushed smaller civilizations. She spoke of how her people had seen Earth's growing presence in space and decided to watch from a distance, unsure if humans would be friend or foe. Daniel stood to one side, watching the faces of the delegates. Some leaned forward, listening intently. Others kept their arms crossed, unwilling to be swayed. When the Queen finished, the chair turned to the Council. "We have heard her words. Now we must decide whether to accept her offer of alliance." Before they could begin debate, the doors at the far end burst open. A security officer hurried in, speaking quickly to the chair. A murmur spread through the chamber. The chair looked up sharply. "We are informed that an unidentified fleet has entered the outer system. They are not hers." Daniel felt a chill. "Raiders?" The Queen's eyes narrowed. "Yes, they are here sooner than I expected." The chamber erupted in voices. Some delegates shouted for immediate defense. Others accused the Queen of leading the raiders here. The Queen stepped forward. "You have little time. If you wish proof of our intentions, then let us fight beside you now." The Council chair looked around. "We have no choice. All ships are to mobilize." Daniel Ward, "You will escort the Queen to her vessel." Within minutes, Daniel and the Queen were back aboard the shuttle, racing to orbital command. From there, she transmitted orders to her fleet. Massive alien ships appeared on the sensors, moving to intercept the raiders before they could reach the inner planets. What followed was chaos. Daniel watched from the command deck as human and alien ships fought side by side. The Queen's fleet moved in perfect formation, shielding weaker human vessels from enemy fire. Together, they drove the raiders back, forcing them to retreat into deep space. Hours later, the last enemy signal vanished from the radar. When Daniel returned to Geneva with the Queen and her child, the atmosphere was transformed. The delegates rose to their feet in respect as they entered the chamber. The Council chair spoke first. "Today, the Queen's fleet stood with ours. Without them, we would have lost lives and ships. The evidence is clear. I call for a vote on the alliance." The vote was swift. Nearly every delegate raised their hand in favor. The alliance was approved. The Queen turned to Daniel. "You have done what few could. You have bridged two worlds." Daniel smiled. "It was never just me. It was the choice we both made, to trust." The child stepped forward and placed a small pendant in Daniel's hand, shaped like the crest on the Queen's guard's armor. "So you will remember us," the young voice said. Daniel closed his fingers around it. "I will." As the Queen's fleet prepared to return to their territory, human ships flew alongside them as a symbol of the new alliance. The stars seemed brighter that night, as if the galaxy itself approved. Daniel stood at the station viewport, watching the ships fade into the distance. For the first time in years, he felt that the future was not only safe but full of possibilities. He had saved a child, but in doing so, he had also saved the chance for peace. And that was something no one would ever forget.